I never imagined that moving into Sunshine Meadows would put my life in danger. Not from illness, but from a relentless HOA president who thought her word outweighed federal law. Yet there I was, gasping for breath in my own living room, because Karen Westfield decided that my medical equipment didn't fit her vision of the neighborhood. It all began 3 months ago. My doctor had urged me to relocate to a single-story home due to my severe COPD. The disease had already limited my world enough. Climbing stairs was impossible, and bad days left me reliant on a wheelchair. Sunshine Meadows seemed perfect. The house I found was exactly what I needed. No stairs, wide doorways, and a quiet patio where I could enjoy the fresh air on days when my lungs cooperated. Before buying, I combed through the HOA bylaws line by line. My supplemental oxygen equipment and accessibility modifications were fully protected under the Fair Housing Act. I thought I was moving into a safe haven. 2 days after I settled in, I learned how wrong I was. There was a sharp, insistent knock at the door. When I opened it, I was greeted by a woman in her mid-50s, her blonde bob styled to perfection, a clipboard pressed tightly to her chest like a badge of authority. "I'm Karen Westfield, president of the Sunshine Meadows HOA," she announced. Not a smile, not a word welcome. Her eyes swept past me, scanning my living room like she was inspecting contraband. "I'm conducting a routine inspection of new properties. May I come in?" Her tone left no room for refusal. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside, the tubing of my portable concentrator trailing at my feet. Karen's gaze immediately landed on the equipment beside my recliner. "What's all this?" she asked, nose wrinkling as though my lifeline were a pile of garbage. "Medical equipment," I said evenly. "I have COPD. This helps me breathe." She scribbled something on her clipboard. "Well, medical or not, it can't be visible from the street through your windows. Section 12, paragraph 4. All homes must maintain an appealing aesthetic consistent with community standards." I inhaled slowly through the nasal cannula, steadying myself. "Actually, I've reviewed the bylaws. Medical equipment is exempt, and so am I, under federal law." Her lips pressed into a razor-thin line. "I've been running this HOA for 15 years. I know the rules better than someone who just moved in." She shoved a yellow violation notice into my hand. "You have 7 days to fix this. After that, it's $100 per day." That was only the opening volley. Over the following weeks, violation notices piled up. My trash can left out 10 minutes too long. An oxygen tank spotted in the back seat of my car. Even my wheelchair ramp, built to exact ADA specifications, was flagged as non-compliant. I tried every reasonable approach, certified letters citing the law, calm explanations, even speaking at an HOA board meeting. Most of the board members shifted uncomfortably as Karen harped on my medical gear, but no one dared oppose her outright. Afterward, one board member, Tom Jenkins, pulled me aside. His voice was low, uneasy. "Look, I'm sorry." Karen, she gets intense. She's been president so long. The rest of us usually just let her have her way. But be careful. The last guy who pushed back, his hedges mysteriously died overnight. He moved out not long after. Things only got worse. Karen began showing up outside my house daily, snapping photos, documenting violations. One afternoon, I caught her peering through my windows while I was reading in my recliner. When I confronted her, she simply muttered, "Community inspection," before strutting back to her house 3 doors down. I installed security cameras the very next morning. That at least wasn't prohibited in her precious rule book. Then came last Tuesday. My breathing was rough that day, so I had settled into my recliner, oxygen turned up higher than usual. The doorbell rang, and through my phone security app, I saw Karen on the porch, clipboard in hand, eyes hard with purpose. I ignored her. After 3 months of harassment, I refused to give her the satisfaction of another argument. She could drop her bogus notice in my mailbox. 10 minutes later, a loud metallic clang echoed from the side of my house, where the external unit for my oxygen system was installed. My portable concentrator shrieked an alarm as the pressure plummeted. Panic clawed at my chest as I fumbled for my emergency backup tank. Before I could connect it, my front door flew open. Karen stood there in the doorway, a ring of master keys dangling in her hand, her face set with cold determination. Karen didn't hesitate to declare her supposed authority. As HOA president, I have access keys for emergencies, she said, her voice brimming with triumph. And your continued violations constitute an emergency to our community standards. Her words cut through the room like ice. My lungs burned as I struggled to connect my backup oxygen tank. Each breath was shallow, ragged, as I forced out, "What did you do?" Karen folded her arms, smug satisfaction on her face. I disconnected that icer outside. Section 15 clearly prohibits external mechanical equipment without prior board approval. You never filed the proper forms. I froze. My worst fear had been confirmed. She had tampered with my oxygen unit. What she didn't realize was that my security cameras had captured everything. Her striding up to the external system, twisting the valve shut, pocketing a critical component, and muttering to herself about teaching him a lesson about following the rules. Evidence. Hard, undeniable evidence. Finally, with shaking hands, I secured my backup tank and took a desperate gulp of air. My voice was still weak, but I managed to dial 911. "I need police and an ambulance," I gasped the dispatcher. "Woman broke into my home. Disabled medical equipment. Can't breathe well." Karen's confident facade flickered. Her self-righteous expression twisted into something almost panicked as she realized the gravity of what I'd just reported. "Oh, don't be so dramatic," she snapped, though her tone wavered. I was enforcing community guidelines. "You're fine now." Minutes later, flashing lights bathed my living room walls. Police officers and paramedics rushed in. The medics surrounded me, checking my vitals, adjusting my oxygen flow, their calm efficiency keeping me anchored. I handed my phone to one of the officers, showing him the footage. His jaw tightened as he watched, his face turning grim. Across the room, Karen stood with her arms crossed, trying to maintain her authority. "This is HOA business," she declared to the second officer. "He agreed to abide by the covenants when he purchased this property. I was simply enforcing them." The officer looked at her steadily. His voice was slow, deliberate. "Ma'am, you entered his home without permission, tampered with life-sustaining medical equipment, and removed components. That's breaking and entering. Criminal negligence. And depending on how the DA views this, potentially attempted manslaughter." For the first time since I'd met her, the color drained from Karen's face. But I have access keys for emergencies," she stammered. The officer snapped his handcuffs open. "A perceived violation of community aesthetics is not an emergency. Turn around and place your hands behind your back." As he cuffed her, Karen sputtered protests about bylaws, property values, and her so-called authority. But her voice carried out into the neighborhood, where curious residents had gathered on their lawns. They watched in stunned silence as the woman who had ruled Sunshine Meadows with an iron fist was led away in the back of a police car. 2 days later, after being discharged from the hospital, I received a certified letter from the HOA board. They had held an emergency meeting in Karen's absence. The vote was unanimous. Karen was removed as president, effective immediately. All fines against me were rescinded, and my medical accommodations were approved permanently and without restriction. That morning, the district attorney called. Karen now faced multiple felony charges: breaking and entering, tampering with medical equipment, theft of medical components, and reckless endangerment. Her real estate license had already been suspended, gutting the career she had built her reputation on. Prison time was looming. Financial ruin was almost certain. Later that week, I watched from my porch as Karen, escorted by her attorney, returned to the HOA clubhouse to gather her belongings. My oxygen tank sat beside me, deliberately visible. She looked up and saw me. For the first time, her expression wasn't smug or triumphant. It was twisted with rage and disbelief. Her lips parted as though to spit venom, but no sound came out. For once, Karen Westfield, the untouchable queen of Sunshine Meadows, was utterly speechless.